Hello, I'm Dr. Yolanda Gamble, right here at AFTV5, where I am also the host of the Winter Circle with Dr. Yolanda Gamble. I am so happy to be with you on today, and I have a very distinguished guest, and I know that you can see him on the screen. I'm going to introduce this very phenomenal man who has done so many wonderful things in the community of Texas. And there certainly has been a certain center of focus for him, but he is quite broad and certainly has been worldwide. And so I want to welcome our special guest, the Honorable, oh yes, Captain, Dr. Retired Captain, my Lord, Larry Wallace Jr. So happy to have you with us once again on AFTV5. Say hello to everyone.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to come back and speak with you all and everybody that's watching. I appreciate the opportunity to share whatever wisdom, whatever knowledge and experiences I have, especially with this topic coming up, which is real dear and near to my heart. Just because we hear a lot of things, we see a lot of things, we know there's a lot of programs and services out there, but a lot of times it still doesn't hit to the core, the root of the problem, to really support this unique population.
Hey, well, thank you so much. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about our military as they're transitioning into the civil or civic society. And it's so very important, or I should say civic, I meant civilian society. Very, very important that we have this discussion, because I believe that our community of people need to understand how challenging it could be for a military member to transition out of the military into the civilian society. And I want you to be aware of these things. I want to be more aware so that we could better serve the community. Well, before we get into this topic, I would like to introduce our guest with just a brief biography. So I'm going to read it because I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to miss anything about this powerful man, and you need to know who he is. Well, Captain Retired is a retired combat veteran that served in both the U.S. Army Reserve and U.S. Army as enlisted and as an officer. Awesome. In addition to being assistant professor of management of Houston Tellison University, also president of Wallace Brothers and Associates, which provides small business strategic planning, and co-owner of The Transition, which mentors within the transition assistance space. So this man knows what he's talking about. In 2019, he was sworn in as the first African-American mayor of Maynard, Texas, the 7th fastest growing suburb in America in 2018, and 20th best small cities to live in America in 2019. He serves as an employment and training advisory member for the Texas Veterans Commission, and also advocacy co-chair for the State of Texas Military Spouse Economic Empowerment Zone member. Wow, there's more. And Maynard Schoolhouse Foundation board member, chair for the Texas Veterans Leadership Task Force, board member for the Capital Area Regional Transportation Planning Organization, and School of Business Professional Advisory Committee member at North Central University. Larry is also a 2020 Changing the Story Distinguished Community Leader. 2019 Austin Under 40 dual finalist for Youth and Education and Civics, Government and Public Affairs. Also, 2019, his achievements, a Black Austin honoree. So we applaud you. We applaud all the achievements that you have made. And we are so, so honored to have you on AFTV5 on today. Well, I want to inform our audience that you have also written a book. Very powerful book, very necessary, very needed in our community, and especially within the community of our military families. Now, this book is called Transitions, Preparing for Financial Combat. Preparing for Financial Combat. Now, this book addresses post-military service and serving, or surviving, I should say, in the civilian workplace. Well, you know, Dr. Wallace, we have got to hear about this book, right? You know we're going to want to hear about it. So please tell us about your book.
Absolutely. When I was working with the U.S. Army Special Operations Aviation Command, my chief of staff, we were retiring at the same time. And once I retired, went through my own kind of transition process, exposure to a lot of different programs that are available during that 1 year of your transition, and ended up over at University of Texas System Administration as their Director of Veteran Support and Leadership Programs for their 13 campuses. And he reached out and said, hey, I have an idea for a kind of a book to help with transitioning. And his perspective was kind of more for the senior brass, the senior leaders, colonels and generals and so forth. And because I was former enlisted, became a drill sergeant, then an officer, and had been in infantry organizations to service and support organizations to special operations, I really wanted the book, and he agreed, to really speak to everybody that is transitioning, and also written in a way that it can help inform others that want to kind of really understand what the service member is kind of going through, and the best way to help support that service member as they try to transition. So I say all that this book is not necessarily written for, hey, look at what we did, look at where we're at, and pretty much do what we did and you'll be successful. Too many books are written that way as far as how someone else operated. This book is really about 140 pages, 70 pages tailored to, wow, I wish I would have at least known to think about this or to think about that. There's nothing about we're the subject matter expert. It's more or less of, hey, if you're getting ready to do an interview in a room, make sure the lighting is right. Make sure you lock the doors. Make sure you know if someone's getting ready to come back, you know, what do you have in contingencies so it doesn't go south on you that quick. A lot of that, nobody would probably tell me that. And now that I know, there's additional research I can do to make sure I'm successful in my transition and my way of establishing my next method of financial wealth. And then the last 70 pages is really focused on just resources, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's trying to get a job, other resources and programs that are out there that are available to military individuals. It's nothing but resources. Again, if I don't run into someone that can tell me, then I don't know about it. And then I miss my window of opportunity because it may only be available to me for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months during my transition window.
Wow. So the military members can use this as a tool.
Yes, yes. It's more kind of like an almanac, so to say. Too often, you're basically kind of winging it. I mean, even
kind
though
of like a little handbook, a tool that they can use to reference, go back to.
I think we had a delay. You froze up on me.
Looks like we may have had a little bit of a delay here. I was hearing you talk, but then your videos froze, and so we apologize for our audience. Of course, we're virtual, and you'll know how it is. It doesn't matter if you're on CNN, CBS, or whatever. It happens to all of us. So exactly. I want to go back and read that. So again, this is a tool. We're going to go back and just kind of revisit a little bit since we froze. Now, so they can use it as a reference guide or a tool that they can go back, a handbook, however you want to call it, and to kind of help them navigate through some answers, correct? That maybe some questions, I said answers, but maybe some questions that they may have. Where can I find this? How do I do that? Is that how it is?
In an aspect, a lot of it is you just don't think of some of these things. And so kind of a aha moment. 70 pages of that book is more or less just aha moments, right? Have you thought about utilizing LinkedIn in this type of way of networking? Have you thought about when you get ready to start doing interviews, kind of finding jobs and applying for jobs that you really don't want? So if you mess up the interviews, you're not missing out, but you're prepping yourself up for the real interviews that you want to do. Have you thought about when you go to do an interview that you don't necessarily wear the colors or whatever of pretty much maybe the opposition, right? So a lot of those things that you don't really think about, and it's kind of written in there from we experienced this stuff or we were told these things from people that experienced these, and it probably prevented them from getting the job, or probably didn't hold them in the best light of the opportunity that they wanted to receive. And so think of these things. And so when you're transitioning, you're putting your best foot forward because you're thinking about a lot of the different ways stuff can be utilized that you're not taught during the Department of Defense Transition Assistance Program. And unless you run into the right person that can kind of hand walk you, you're kind of out there learning on your own, and you're losing time for that 1 year of utilizing certain benefits, certain services to help you transition. And then two, you kind of lose that new veteran smell that I kind of call it. You know, after a certain point, you're not the new veteran anymore.
Wow. Well, you know, you kind of diving into one of the questions that I really want to ask you as to how difficult is it for a person coming from the military to integrate into the civilian culture, and what are their challenges? So we want to know what their challenges are. And even though you did highlight some of the things, like maybe getting into LinkedIn, how they can better go into a job or present themselves, or however, or for an interview, however, are there any other challenges that we should be aware of?
You know, I'd say the biggest challenge, and it comes down to a statistic here. Only barely 1% of the military is serving at any given time. Roughly less than 20% of our U.S. population has anybody serving or has any knowledge about how the military truly operates. So you're talking about 80% of the population only knows what they see on TV, the movies, and what they hear, right? So it becomes one of those pieces of how does this individual that has been in this profession of arms, where your evaluation, the swiftness of your progression through the ranks, the certain types of training that you were permitted to go to, and the awards that are really plastered on your uniform, that becomes your resume, and you have to figure out how to translate that resume to the language of this new industry. And a lot of times in the military, it's more or less of, you did a great job where you're at, now we're going to send you somewhere else because we believe you can be great in this other position. It's reversed when in the civilian sector. It's a lot of, well, where do you want to go? And a lot of times for us in the military is, well, I've been successful everywhere I went, so just give me an opportunity. Tell me where you think I would be a good fit. And so the method of thinking, analyzing is vastly different. And so you need more of that assistance as far as, tell me what you have done. Even though you may be a infantry person or a military police person or a human resources person, what were the actual units that you served in? Where were their locations? What was the role, and so forth? So then you can be able to say, okay, based upon this industry or this company, that sounds like this service, that sounds like this program, that sounds like what you said there sounds like this acronym over here. We need more assistance in being able to really correlate to the new environment that we're trying to go to. And then also kind of saying, all right, if you really want to go here, these are the prerequisites you need to be able to meet to get to that level. We have that in a professional military career pathway that tells us you should be getting promoted by this time frame. You should be going into these schools, this educational attainment, and so forth. But that's not necessarily available on the civilian side, especially because you have so many different industries, so many different types of positions. So it's really, for most, can be overwhelming when you're trying to figure out how does the system work.
Wow, that has to be very, very challenging. And I'm telling you, I'm totally engaged as you're talking because I have some military friends and I want to understand how challenging it was for them to migrate into the civilian society and the workplace, more so because income is a big, huge issue. And I see that your book is not all about the financial, but it is a part of the financial. And I just want to ask you, what kind of financial challenges are they having? As they're, you know, it's assumed that military people make a lot of money. Really. And we believe they do. And then so when they're going into migrating into the civilian community, well then what are their my assumption would have been, well, their expectations are very high because as you said, they've gained merits. They've gained honor in so many high level positions or different positions in the military. And so then getting into the workplace in the civilian society, I would expect that they would want to continue that honor, you know, or that merit. But often I found they don't get it. Right. They don't receive that. They become common, regular people. Right. Respectfully, I'm respectfully saying that. Common, regular people who are expected to show up on the job, you know, 8 to 5, you know, 7 to 3:30, whatever, and just work and just do a good job. You know, there's a story that if I could tell it correctly, you know, I'm not the best storyteller, but I'm going to dive on in here and try to tell the story. There was this man who was a greeter at Walmart, very distinguished man, just a nice man, clean-cut man. He's welcoming everybody in Walmart, but every time he came to work, he was coming late every single morning. Well, at first I kind of let it slide, you know, for a while because he was such a nice person and everybody was looking forward to seeing him. I think I'm kind of breaking up a little bit. Am I still on? Going okay?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay. So they would, you know, everyone just loved seeing him coming into Walmart. Hello, welcome to Walmart. Well, eventually the supervisor gets a little frustrated with him and said, you know, I've got to talk to this guy. He's coming in late every single day. So he pulled him into the office and he said, hey, Joe, you know, I notice you're late every morning. And he said, yeah, I really try to get on up and get these bones a moving and doing my thing, you know, every morning. I like this job. He said, but you know what? It's not very good for the other staff to see you coming in late and we just let you slide by, you know, and can you just do better? You know, we don't want to lose you. Everybody loves you. But he said, well, he said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to try to do my best. I'm going to try to do my best. So then the supervisor said, well, you know what, Joe, what are some of your challenges? You know, because he's thinking it's got to be a problem, right? And he's not telling him. And he said, well, for the past so many years, I mean, he had years behind him, like 20 years and plus. It just was amazing. And so many merits. And he says, well, I was a former lieutenant in the military. And, you know, we went out on some of the battles and we fought some of these battles. And I have a little injury to kind of help. It slows me down a little bit. But you know what? I don't want to just stop. I'm already retired, but I want to keep on going. Well, you know what it did for that supervisor? He looked at him and he's saying, wait a minute, you're greeting at Walmart. You were a former lieutenant, man. What are you doing here? But in his, you see, we don't know who we're dealing with when we're dealing with the military. I'm saying this civilians of society, and I want our audience to understand that when someone says I'm coming out of the military, they're coming with some merits here, especially if they come with years. And he said, you know what, I'm not asking you to give me any favors or anything like that. And then the supervisor says, hey, you know what, hey, forget it. You just come on in just when you can come in. Because he was then giving him what? Honor. And I think we need more of this, Dr. Wallace, in our community, in our society. Honor, right? Honor. And so, from that little story, hopefully I told it well enough that everybody could appreciate it.
Right.
Because that's what we need to understand as a society. When our military, which I wrote this down very, very, very well, our nation's greatest asset is our service members. And when they come back into society, we need to recognize them, and we need to give them honor, and we need to let them know that we hold them to the highest regard and we appreciate them. And I think that with this book, this tool, this wonderful book that you have written, along with a colleague, which I want you to share who that colleague is that kind of assisted in with the writing, as to that person, because I want our audience to know that, wow, you're an amazing writer, and you certainly are an author. You certainly have done amazing things in our community as community advocate. You've advocated for the military members as they were transitioning in. But who is this other person that I see on your book? Who is that person? And how special is that person?
Yeah. So, when you look at the authors, he and I are on two totally different spectrums. So you're getting two whole different trains of thought, experiences in post-military life in that book, and I'll also say even from the military itself, Colonel retired Heath Nemi is a West Point graduate. He is an aviator, so rotary wings helicopters. He was in special operations for most of his career. He flew the helicopters for Delta forces and Navy SEALs and so forth, and a lot of that. I mean, that's the organization, my last organization that I served in, and so he was, when he went through his transition as a colonel in that type of organization with that type of background experience, it was two totally different transition processes. Right?
Wow.
I'm just a captain, prior enlisted, human resources. Here you have a specialty field like a doctor or, those type of aspects. He's an aviator, special operations, flown with the elite of the elite in a lot of those different combat movies that we see. And so his transition was on a different scale, on a different level. Different opportunities. He's now doing a lot with government contracts and selling UAVs and so forth, and having success in that space. And mine has been more in a different area, serving politically and community and so forth. And what we basically said is, what better way where you have someone that's coming from the enlisted side, someone that's coming from the officer side, West Point versus basic training and so forth. You have someone giving insight of how to navigate just post-military and through the transition process from two totally different experiences and ways of having to navigate it. And then at the same time, two totally different ways of having to navigate just acclimating into civilian life and the opportunities that are available, whether you're a colonel or whether you're a junior captain. And so you kind of get the mixture in there of, no matter what your rank is, no matter what your profession is, think of these things because they're going to be able to set you up for success regardless. And kind of back to your original piece or question early, which was, what are some of the transition issues? The transition issues are different for generals and colonels, command sergeant majors and sergeant majors, or people that are aviators, doctors, or those specialty fields, than those of us that are middle ranks or junior enlisted ranks, right? is not the same, especially different from someone that's coming from a specialty field versus more of a general field, right? I don't think a lot of people really think about that or understand, but when someone's coming out being a lieutenant colonel or a sergeant major, when someone's saying that they had a certain level of command, right? You're thinking automatically, okay, you had a whole bunch of people that were up underneath you. You probably were in charge of a lot of money, or you had specialized training. Now, what if I told you that we all know paratroopers and they jump out the airplane and they have their chutes on them. So what if I tell you these riggers, as they're called, that put the bags together and everything, make sure it's good to go. These riggers are anywhere from third grade enlisted to fourth grade enlisted, so they're not even sergeants yet, and they're putting together these parachutes that the 4-star, 3-stars wear, right? And they're trusting them to make sure that their chutes are properly prepared, that when they pull it, everything is going to go well. People don't think about that. I mean, when I was working in aviation and going through the 160th. It's the Night Stalkers that fly for these entities within special operations. We have, again, skill level 1 specialists and sergeants. They are looking at these helicopters that are purchased regular and then refitted for special operations. And they're checking the rotary wings, they're checking all the bolts to make sure there's no splits and cuts for these individuals to fly nighttime missions and so forth. But when they come out, all they're looking at most of the time on this other side of the house is their rank. Not what they've done, not who they support, not what the critical impact could be if they're not on top of their game. They only look at their rank. And that's usually the biggest detrimental, the biggest frustration for a lot of people transitioning out is more focused on rank, is more focused on specialty than it is what you have actually done to then figure out the value you can bring to an organization.
Wow, how does that affect them psychologically?
I mean, it's the same thing with me. I'm human resources by trade, right? Out of my almost 20 years before retirement, maybe 8 of those 18 and a half years, I actually did human resources. The rest was some type of commanding or leading in some form or fashion. And then you come out having served with general officers and being in the meetings and supporting them, and even sometimes if you demonstrate yourself, being able to lead under their delegated authority. And then you come out and people are saying, you should be operating or you should be looking for these types of jobs, not this high level or this high level type of pay, right? And I think my time as mayor truly demonstrated I wouldn't have been able to do what we did in the city of Manor, preparing for the winter storm, COVID, the threats of protests with George Floyd, if it wasn't for the unique experiences I got from my career, my military career, right? And so you see a different value in the training and the assessment, the evaluation, the second and third order of kind of, ensuring, protocols and processes are in place. But that may not be the same for another captain that retires out the Army. They may have different experiences, but when you're only looking at me by my rank and by my specialty, you miss out on all the other things I could bring to the table because of my military service.
Wow, I tell you, you've given us a wealth of information, knowledge, educating us actually on not only the challenges, but also the victories and also the wonderful accomplishments that so many made. And so now it enlightens me a great deal, and I'm sure our audience as well, to a point to where we can say, you know what, when our military comes home, I see them in a different light. They're not just people coming home just to migrate back into their families, and here's dad coming back, or here's mom coming back, and now they're just going to be a part of the nucleus of what we call family, and they're just going to be just like us. No, they're not. because of this extensive training, as you have so eloquently detailed, they can offer so much more to society. And I feel like we're getting cut short, a little short, by not recognizing that, right? By not recognizing the skills and the talents and the ability and what they bring to the table, and not just looking at a job description and seeing if that person can fit that job description, but rather how far can they take it? You know, how far can we grow from that person and learn from that person? So I really appreciate this conversation, and certainly you're just doing an awesome job at telling us that, you know, what are some of these challenges. And you know, I know financial is, we have to talk a little bit more about financial, because financial is a big, huge thing. And no doubt, I know the military takes care of the people. No doubt about that. Military takes care of the people. But when they're migrating into the civilian workplace, I don't see the loyalty there all the time. I really don't. I mean, we deal with these companies. Hopefully company owners are listening to us, and you have to understand, you know, we need to be loyal to our staff. We need to say, okay, they're not just coming here to get a paycheck. They're not just meeting a job description. But we as a company and leaders of companies, we need to be loyal to them. And, you know, the military is loyal. And so many families do look to the military when they're in the military, look to them for many means of care. And so, you know, now as they're migrating in, what are these financial challenges some of them are having? You know, how is that affecting the family? Maybe this question is a little twofold or however, but what are your thoughts on that?
So you have, again, you know, I think with anybody transitioning, you have two sides of the coin. Those that are coming out in this aspect, whether they're coming out retired or disabled, versus if they're just coming out and they serve their time, right? And they don't pursue maybe disability benefits, right? So there's two sides of the coin, just like it was when you're talking about what value do they bring, right? Are you certain rank? Are you certain specialty versus are you not, right? And so in this aspect, and specifically for this question, say for example, for me, I have my retirement benefits, and then I had my disability as well. That opens up the gamut of a lot of what I can do. And a lot of what I've done in these past few years has been because I'm not having to necessarily work to be able to take care of the house, to be able to take care of certain bills. So I'm able to pick and choose what I want to do. And if I do interviews, I'm able to say, well, if you want me at the table, then I'll be at the table. And if you don't, then I'm just going to move on to something else. And then you have the other side, the individuals that may not have the retirement, may not have the disability compensation and pay, right? And disability in a sense as I did not come into the military like this. My service either made me flat-footed, so I'm probably going to get something, gave me tendonitis, gave me whatever, right? You don't have a lot of professions that acknowledge you in that aspect, not even first responders, unfortunately, that will say, because of your service, you are not the same person physically and or mentally. Therefore, we're going to compensate you because of the service you provided and how it altered you in some form or fashion, little or big. And so if you have individuals that may not have the disability compensation pay or the retirement, then they're coming out and they're hoping to be able to get paid equivalent to what they were receiving in the military. A lot of times they're only looking at, and a lot of us do this, you're only looking at the paycheck you receive in your bank, not what's being taken out, not what at the end of the year the military says commissary benefits and this and that, you know, this is also equitable to this amount that you're not seeing in your paycheck. These are services we created, they're on a military installation, and they give that a value at the end of the year. And so a lot of times people are coming out saying, oh, I'm only making 50,000. But when you add in all those other benefits, the reduced fees at the commissary and so forth, they may actually be making 80,000. So they're coming out thinking they need 50, when in actuality, medical, dental, health, all that stuff is really 80,000, and they're not looking and they don't understand all the benefits that the military is covering that's not in the paycheck.
Wow. Wow, that's enlightening. I'm just like, wow, that's some good information, because just that knowledge just wasn't there. And I know I do see that disparity, with pay and how that's been handled. And then one coming out of the military, just kind of like the story I shared with you about the lieutenant, I think it was Lieutenant Colonel, but having a disability, he's still wanting not to sit home, but he still takes him a while to get going, right? And that's still a disability of that needs to be recognized.
Right.
He gets to work, and once he's there, he's doing a great job. But those things are needed to be, but not on the other side of that. Are these corporations, are these places of employment looking to give them that disability benefit, or accommodate that disability that they may come with, because sometimes it's care, sometimes it's a desk that needs to be adjusted, reasonable accommodations is what they call it. And that some sort of device, a phone device or something, some sort of accommodation that needs to happen so that that person could functionally do that job and do it well. And so many of the companies thank God for it, the equity that's going on now in our president and his agenda to just make sure that we're employing more equity all the way around, especially for those who are disabled, those coming out of the military, those who maybe some racial disparities has been going on, has been going on for a period of time, but now more equality and everything like that. So that is very enlightening, and I just wish our military well. I just think they ought to get paid real big. I mean, really big, because sometimes we do assume, like you said, depends on their ranking, where they were, how they're coming out, and when they come out. And, and sometimes they may not come out retired, right? Yeah. And they may just, I don't know what the terminology for that is, as they're coming out at one status or rank, and they're going back into the civilian society of the workplace. They're looking for that equal pay, like you said. They're looking for that equal pay, but that equal pay is not always there.
Right. I could give you probably a slew of examples of just even my transition. And, my co-author and I, we always said that's probably one of the best opportunities for me, being a part of the book and so forth, is I was a junior enlisted individual, human resources, right? And when I came out, human resources, you're thinking going to HR, I thought that too. And I was being told left and right, I am too senior to be an HR strategist because I have 15 years as an HR individual, but I was experience-wise with state, EEO, and so forth, I was a beginner. So I didn't fit, right? And so then it's like, okay, well, let me go operations. And so I said, I'm gonna go operations because the other 10 years of my life was leading and managing and so forth. But again, it's, oh my gosh, you're top 3 to be interviewed for the chief administrator job at the Austin Bergstrom airport or this area, that area. But it was always, we need someone that has the industry experience to go now. And these other two have the industry experience, even though we lip service, as you're saying, want people that can lead and manage and know how to understand that personal lives outside of the office impact what happens in the office. But we don't want to wait the time for you to learn the organization or the industry, even though you may end up surpassing a person that has been taught and trained to think a certain way within this industry, then how to deal with things and variables all the time. And then you have the other aspect where, it's like I couldn't find a job. So then it's basically you start volunteering. And I mean, that's honestly how I got my job at UT System, was basically, look, I believe I could do the job. I know you need the position. I believe I could do the job. So, hey, I'm here. I'll volunteer. And at that time, my boss, Major General retired, Major General Tony Kukla, was like, hey, look, Larry, I don't want to waste your time. How about a day? And I said, sir, 5 days. I'll be here all 5 days. And it was, unfortunately, for someone like me, and there's others that are like that, right? You're trying to find, you're trying to prove yourself, you're you're applying for jobs and you're being told that either you're too seasoned because of the years of experience you have, but then you don't have the industry experience, right? Or the area of specialty that you have doesn't fit the particular industry in the civilian sectors, right? And a lot of times you're just looking for someone to say, just sit down with me, let me tell you my story as far as what I've done, and you to say, oh, okay, that's not necessarily a director level. That's this level within this industry, and it's called this. And this is equivalent to this type of pay. You know, nobody's really doing that. And that's why you have a lot of military people that just feel as if they're not being acclimated to post-military life. And a lot of people that just kind of do a lot of job hopping because they're trying to find what fits right, what feels right.
Mhm. Wow, you have really truly become an advocate for those who are transitioning out of the military into the civilian workplace. And thank you for that advocacy, because so many, I can only imagine hundreds, if not thousands, are needing this type of advocacy. And I'm so proud of you and your co-writer who have written this book as a tool for them to have in hand, to look at and know where these resources are, and to be able to be a better aid to those who are coming out. I applaud you. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Well, I do want to just have a few more minutes, but I do want to address this COVID-19 pandemic. Omicron, all the sort of different variants, there's news tell us that there could be another. There's challenges, I'm sure, for military people, as they're transitioning out of the military on into this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, because so many people have lost jobs just in the civilian side, and just lost jobs. Then you have mothers who they're having to toss up, go to work, or stay home with the children because daycare prices are so high. And there's just challenge after challenges after challenges. Kids not being able to go to school, having to come back home, be tutored right there at home. Just challenge after challenge. Dad, he's now hoping to hold on to his job.
Right,
Mom saying, I got to stay home. It's so many different things that are happening. Are these same challenges happening to those who are coming out of the military, or maybe they're in their post-military now, and not so much just coming out, but just they're in their post-military time now? What challenges are they having? You know what? I tell you what, if I was young enough, man, I'll be reaching back. Let me see if I can join the military again. Seems like it's
right.
right. It seems like a lot more secure place. So what are their thoughts? There's got to be some psychological issues going on here with that, and just where are they at? You talk to people all the time.
So as I'm transitioning from being chair of the Community Veterans Engagement Board out here for the Hayes, Williamson, and Travis County area, and had chaired the Military Spouse Economic Empowerment Zone for a while, and now a vice chair for the Texas Veterans Commission's Veteran Services Advisory Committee, right? In a lot of those conversations, you don't see too much of a change in that. But I would tell you what we saw is more individuals are going to school to extend that transition process. Because now the way the GI Bill is structured, it can help with housing, it can help with substance and so forth, more so than just paying for classes and getting a stipend for books, right? It really changed a lot of what is available now. So you see more people kind of really going and utilizing school to extend that transition process to help them kind of figure out where they fit again, right? And then when it comes to all the career fairs and so forth, that's probably where the biggest hit is you just can't engage with someone face to face and sit down and really talk through a resume and say, I don't really understand it, I don't really get it, and working with someone. There's some limitations of doing things virtually that you just don't get face to face.
Yes, no doubt that is a challenge, not being able to get in someone's face and really talk with them. as they're transitioning and as they're trying to get placement. Wow, that has to be something. Well, you know what? I'm just so amazed. I'm just so honored. I'm so blessed to be able to talk to you today. I really, really am. And to be enlightened more with some knowledge and educated more as to our military and as they're in their post stage of their military experience and going back into migrating into the civilian society and to learn of their challenges, and to learn of their victories, their honors, their merits. All of this has been a part of the conversation today. I remember when I interviewed you a couple of years ago, a phrase that you coined, and that phrase is, the only way through is together. Mm-hmm. The only way through is together. And the statement can apply much of what we've talked about today, as well as with, the pandemic and some of the challenges, the workplace challenges that they have. And so I really want you to help us understand when you say the only way through is together, how does that fit? And as we come to a close in our discussion on today, and once again, I want to appreciate AFTV5 for this opportunity to interview Dr. Wallace. And I just hope that our audience can say, as I have said, this has really been enlightening. It really, really has. And I hope that all of us who are listening and have listened in today, that when our military comes home or they're in the post stage of their experience, that we honor them. That's a power word in this statement, in this whole discussion, I should say, to honor them and to keep them at that place in your mind and heart. And even though maybe in the workplace, there's certain lateral moves and certain positions, leadership, and we respect that. But in our own hearts, we should honor them. And I think that that's just very, very important. And another power word that's within our statement that's right here at the crust of this book, this powerful book, is transition. It's the transitioning into, I want to just say that the name of that book again, transition is a very powerful word. And I think everyone all around the world is in the midst of a transition of some sort. It may not be military or however, but we're all in some level of transition as we get used to this new normal, right? Our world will never go back to where we think it was or whatever that world was for each individual. But now it's time for us to advance ahead, think ahead, be more progressive in our thought processes now, and to, in the process, to also honor one another, respect one another, and understand we're all in this together. And again, if you would just give us your closing remarks and just highlight what do you want us to understand when you say the only way through is together?
Definitely. So I kind of put it together in an aspect of my mother and other have read this book, and when they start, they say, "Hey, it's military. I'm not military." I say, "Well, get past the first chapter." And they get past the first chapter and say, you know what? All this stuff that you're talking about interviews and resumes and networking, it's applicable to everybody. I'm like, exactly. It's not a military thing. It's a military context of how to make the military individual and their experiences and their jargon and so forth, how to correlate it to this new environment that they're looking to go into. But everything else is the same. If you take off the military lens and just try to understand it, it's all the same as far as what's the best ways to do an interview, to write your resume, to get acclimated, understand the places you want to go so you're not misstepping and potentially self-inflicting upon yourself opportunities that could have been financially beneficial. When you start talking about organizations, how do you make sure you're not doing lip service, right? You can honor, you can recognize, but how are you making sure what you're doing is not lip service? If you're talking about helping people with resumes, how do you make sure it's not cookie cutter? If you're talking about helping people do interviews, how are you making sure that you're really setting them up for success and not just giving them general standard questions when organizations are now going to the STAR method, right? Giving a situation and asking the person, what they've done with their behavior and so forth, right? And a lot of times it's just lip service. They want to honor, but the programs and systems they put in place are no more than just lip service.
I got you.
And so kind of putting those two together to the only way through is together is basically, I can't come up with the actual solution that will work through the problem if I don't know 100% of the problem, right? If you only give me 90% of the problem and my solution fails, it's because the other 10% I couldn't plan for because you withheld it. And so in this aspect is, if you don't tell me fully 100% what your issues are with my resume, then I can't fix it. If you don't tell me 100% why I'm not a good fit, then I don't know not to waste my time in this space. If you don't tell me 100% what I need to do to get your attention or to make myself look impressive to potentially be hired by you, whether it's going to certain schools or certain trainings or so forth, then I can't meet that expectation because you haven't told me 100% what I need to do to be successful. So the only way through is together, because if you're withholding, we're not together.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Hey, don't withhold, don't withhold. Empower one another. We're all in this together and we need one another to succeed. And I know that we can do that as an American society. Now, how can people get your book? And we're going to put that on the screen. So don't fret, audience. We're going to make sure you have that on the screen because I know some of you are screaming, how do I get the book? I need the book. I need the book. Well, tell us, how can we get this book? And then also, how do you have any personal information that you like to give us as to maybe a website or a Facebook page, social media page, whatever, so that people can connect with you as well?
Absolutely. So you can get the book in multiple different ways. You can do to our website, thetransition.us. You can also go Google. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and so forth online. You can order them online. If you're at the military commissary, if there's any military people by bases, it's on base as well within the AFI store. We established that contract over a year ago, so we're in the stores as well. And if you want to reach out to me directly, you can go to my website, which is LarryWallaceJR.com, LarryWallaceJr.com, and so you can learn more just about me, and there's also a link there to the book, taking you right over to thetransition.us. So.
Well, I'm going to make sure I have that book as well in my library, and I can't wait to purchase it. I think that it's going to be wonderful. And my son was former military in the Marines. Yes, I think that'd be a wonderful book for him. I'm going to gift him that book. So thank you so much for being our guest on AFTV5. And I'm also your host on the Winner's Circle with Dr. Yolanda Gamble. So, hey, thank you so much, Dr. Wallace. You have been a wonderful guest as usual. And we look forward to having you back on the show. So I know that you're going to be achieving more and more things in our community that we're going to have to say, hey, come on back on over. About that too. Well, God bless you and thank you so much for joining us.
You too. Appreciate it anytime.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.